Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to another exciting edition of Living at Your Highest Quality of Life with the doctors at Inspire Wellness. I'm joined by
Dr. Jessica Hutchins.
And I'm Dr. Dan Nitis. It's great to be with you again. I forgot the music. Darn it. Okay, next time I'm putting music back on. I love that. So anyway, thank you very much for your participation in these videos, giving us feedback on topics and things that you like, things that we can improve upon. So we're really excited to be talking today about stress and your cortisol level. So we've consistently talked about the importance of managing stress, and I just want to give you a very brief high-level overview because it's my responsibility to do this for you, right? I'm going to remind you of the things that drive chronic disease. So it's together now,
right.
Inflammation, nutrient deficiencies, and an inability to detoxify. Those three key areas are the drivers of chronic disease. And then within those key drivers are threads that can impact each area. So the threads that we focus on again are nutrition, exercise or movement, stress management, sleep hygiene, and loving kindness. So today we want to spend time on the third thread, which is stress. And this is so critically important that not only are we paying attention to our bodies as it relates to stress, but I cannot emphasize enough. Stress is the #1 toxin to the body, right? It's not food, it's not metals, it's not organisms. Like we could sit here all day and you could keep asking me, and I'm going to tell you that it's stress. And it's not because the stress that we feel, the tension, is the problem. The problem is that when we are feeling periods of stress or we're under stress, our adrenal glands, we have 2 adrenal glands that sit atop each kidney. They produce our stress hormones, our cortisol and adrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine. And these are really important. But here's the problem. The way the system was designed in the human body is that we have 2 sides to the nervous system, the fight or flight and the rest and digest. And we should be spending the majority of our time in the rest and digest mode and only activating our stress hormones in periods of fight or flight.
Real stress, like being chased by a bear stress, or maybe a car coming out in the middle of the road where you have to decide really quickly which way to run. That kind of real stress.
So we've all experienced that, where the hair stands up on the back of your neck, you can feel the blood flowing to your extremities, you get stronger and faster for a brief period of time. So if we do activate that side of our immune system during a fight or flight period, it's for a few minutes, and then things normalize and the rest and digest goes back to its normal state. The problem in 2019 is that our adrenal glands are secreting or producing these stress hormones all day long, every day, because we're stressed out as a society, right? Whether it's our children, our parents, our cell phones, our jobs, like whatever it is, we live at a time where our stress level is so high all day long.
And we also look at self-care as something that's not important or that's a selfish thing to do too.
Right. That's exactly right. But I'm going to just mention this and I'm going to stop talking and let Dr. Hutchins start. The metabolites, the breakdown products of cortisol and adrenaline are what actually in a counterintuitive way are toxic to the body. And that's why stress is actually the #1 toxin. Because if we are producing these and our bodies are having to address and deal with higher than normal cortisol or adrenaline throughout the day, every day, those breakdown products become difficult to detoxify out. And then at some point, that elevated stress level becomes the driver of your chronic disease. All right, I'm going to let you talk.
Thank you for all that.
That was great, though, that you let me go.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about cortisol testing, because we talk a lot about how to decrease your stress, the fact that it's so important to do self-care activities, mindfulness activities, meditation, yoga, prayer, knitting, sewing, cooking, reading, walking, whatever it is that, listening to music, I guess, is a big one too.
Sure.
Whatever it is that calms your mind, that lets those stress hormones decrease and puts you in a state of no fear, not being, hyper vigilant and hyper alert to everything going on, just letting your whole body relax. So that's definitely a big aspect. And no matter what your cortisol levels are, those things are going to help for sure. I mean, there's tons of science around it. It really helps deactivate your sympathetic nervous system and put you into a more parasympathetic or rest and digest nervous system mode. But as far as testing, sometimes we do need data as human beings in order to drive our behavior changes and lifestyle changes. So that's one of the big reasons I use cortisol testing, when I do, is to give people data to make them see on paper how stress really is impacting their physiology. And there's lots of tests out there to do it. I mean, even some nutrient deficiencies can be a result of having to metabolize these stress hormones out day in and day out. And so that uses nutrients. Every chemical reaction in your body uses vitamins and minerals and nutrients. So that's less left to do your other chemical reactions with, like detoxifying and absorbing and digesting and things like that. So we tested in a couple different ways. One is blood, the other is urine, and then saliva. And so the blood, it usually is covered by insurance. That's one of the benefits from it, but it only gives you a 1 point in time snapshot of your cortisol levels. And cortisol, the absolute amount is important, but just as important is the pattern. So we want to see cortisol be really high in the morning, not too high that we feel like things are too overwhelming to get out of bed high, but just high enough that we have the energy, we have the motivation, and we're ready to face the day. Then gradually throughout the day, it'll go down, 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 and then at night it goes down pretty low, then your melatonin increases, and then you get tired and you go to sleep. When that pattern is off, let's say you have low cortisol in the morning and high cortisol at night, people feel horrible. They feel like they're wired but tired, like they can't shut their minds off, but they're too physically exhausted to maybe have any kind of regular exercise routine, let's say, or they, after dinner's over, they just sit on the couch and they can't move from the couch and they go to bed early. Or some people have a second wind at night where that's the only time of the day they can get their housework done or get stuff ready for their kids is later in the evening. And then they miss that window where they can fall asleep and they end up not falling asleep till a lot later. So the wired and tired feeling is a big thing with the abnormal cortisol patterns. And if cortisol is really high all the time, that's absolutely a problem. I mean, all of these are problems, but high cortisol just puts your body in a constant state of, it's almost like wearing your body down. It wears your bones down, it wears your muscles down, it wears your gut down. It's just the opposite of building your body up. So you don't want that. And it also increases your susceptibility to have insulin resistance, prediabetes and diabetes as well. And it certainly can increase your weight when you have high cortisol all the time, especially around the midsection. It's a common place for cortisol weight gain to happen. So again, with the high cortisol, we do want to bring that down for lots of other reasons too that I just mentioned. But then when you have really low cortisol all day long, those are the people who just feel so drained all the time. They just can't get out of bed no matter when it is. They might be on disability because they literally can't work, or their anxiety is so bad from having really low cortisol too. So whether it's really high, really low, or just an abnormal pattern, those are all abnormalities that, again, on paper are good motivators to really get your butt into gear and do some good self-care. So there are also different supplements that we can use based on if it's high or low that I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable using unless we had a test result. So that's another reason to do the testing. If your cortisol is high at night, there's certain things you can take maybe around dinner time to bring it down. And if it's low all day long, there's certain things that can help boost it up. And then there are adaptogens, which help no matter what the cortisol is. Adaptogens were named because they let you adapt to stressors. So adaptogens. So lots of herbs that have been around for hundreds, probably thousands of years that are used, like rhodiola, ashwagandha, things like that will help. But nothing's going to be more helpful, in my opinion, than self-care and mindfulness activities. And you can't always take your stress away, but you could absolutely change how the stress reacts in your mind, how your mind perceives the stress and how your mind reacts to the stress. Sure. So, you want to sometimes take a step back and pretend you're on the mountain looking at everything from a 30,000 foot view. And
Right.
sometimes you can make decisions that are less fear-based, less stress-based that way. You can just look at things as they are, not with all the mind noise of the emotions that you have attached to different things. You look at things as they are, you problem solve, you move on, you turn the page, you read the next page. If you think of your life kind of as a story, the chapter ends, a new chapter begins, a page ends, a new page begins. So things, even if they feel that stressful, that's going to go away and there's going to be a new chapter soon. So
Right. And you made me think of something that a patient actually told me this past year. So many of our decisions or our conflicts inside ourselves are fear-based. And I thought this was interesting when the patient said to me, "Do you know, doc, what fear stands for?" And I said, "Well, what? Where are you going with this?" False expectations appearing real. And think about the things that we're afraid of, the inner conflict that we have inside our head, that noisy conversation that oftentimes is stimulating a lot of the stress that we feel internally. Kind of go back and look at things that you were afraid of. How did it really turn out? Was it the way you expected it, or did it go differently? I mean, I can certainly go back and look and think of things that, I made decisions that were fear-based that it didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go at all. And I think that becomes a common theme with people. And so if we can identify that and not operate from a place of fear, but a place of knowing where, we've done our due diligence, we've quieted the mind, we feel good about the decision that we're making and we're making it for the right reasons, then we can let a lot of that dissipate. But oftentimes this isn't ever discussed in the doctor's office. And unfortunately, with stress being such a common driver of disease, it becomes critically important to be a focal point if you're not feeling your best, and identifying where those stress points throughout the day are coming from, and then putting together a plan that will help you better manage your overall stress level. Would you agree with that, or do you see things differently? But false expectations appearing real. Remember that the next time you're feeling that sense of fear, and maybe laugh to yourself a little bit, like, you know what, maybe that's right. And then take a step back and maybe not be so afraid of it. And by managing that better, that reduces that inner feeling, that inner conflict that we call stress.
Right, exactly. So situations are just situations. They're not inherently stressful. Your mind makes them stressful based on past experiences. So once you realize that, it's a lot easier. And it takes work. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time,
Right.
certainly, but it gets easier as each situation comes up to really take the stress and the emotional attachment to that situation out of it. And it makes a big difference in your health overall. Again, it helps your nutrients because you use a lot of vitamins and minerals to process these hormones out. I mean, it helps how you feel. It helps your gut work better. It just helps everything. And so let me get back to the test real quick. So
Sorry about
sidetracked.
that. That's my fault.
So the reason I was talking about the pattern of the cortisol is because really the only test that can get into the pattern is the saliva test. So the urine test is really great, but it doesn't get into what your cortisol levels are necessarily at different times of day. Although the tests, they're evolving, so they are developing some urine tests that do that. And then the saliva test, so that you can do it at home, so you're not stressed out when you go to a lab and you're about to have a needle poked in you after waiting 2 hours, you're late for work, your cortisol is probably a little bit higher then, right? But with the saliva, you just do it in the comfort of your own home, and you do it 4 times in one day, then mail it off. It's a pretty easy test to do. And again, you can see if you're overall have high levels to low levels, and more importantly, that your pattern is optimal.
Great. And I see that one of our patients has chimed in with CBD oil was able to help lower cortisol levels.
Yeah, thank you guys for writing comments.
That's great.
That's
and I do want to mention that because we know that CBD oil and CBD, Charlie Bed Dog, I just want to make sure you got it, it's CBD, is a component, is derived from hemp. It's not cannabis derived. And so you can get it over the counter, you can get it online. I think local like Mustard Seed in Cleveland has CBD oil for sale, but it is good at reducing anxiety. And so I appreciate that, pointing that out.
But remember, no supplement is a replacement for a mindset shift of realizing that things inherently are just things without an emotional attachment.
Right. And that's important to remember, seriously, that There's no magic thermostat outside of you that anybody controls your emotional responses. So whether you're happy or sad, you're feeling one way or another, that's all under your control. And how you respond to every situation that is presented to you is up to you. So again, if you're able to really channel into controlling your mindset, and that is really difficult to do, but it is doable. If you're able to control your emotional responses, you will begin to see that that internal stress that normally drives you begins to really melt away. I know we're up against it at a quarter of the hour. Is there any last minute things you wanted to say about testing or?
No, but again, please don't think it's selfish to engage in regular self-care activities. Don't go overboard and make it your mission. Don't schedule every minute of your day with things like yoga and meditation groups, things like that. But you have to take care of yourself. You have to give yourself time to de-stress, to be healthy, to let things come to you. When you have your mind going all day long, it's really hard to make decisions that aren't fear-based, especially too. So please don't underestimate the importance of quiet time alone with your mind, or without your mind.
Excellent. Well, that's great information, Doc. Thank you so much. If we can help in any way, come see us. 216-965-9303 is our number. We are happy to see you, discuss whatever conditions you're dealing with. If you think that cortisol test is something that is of interest and might help you in your quest to feel a higher quality of life, please let us know. Mm-hmm. So really appreciate all of you participating today with us, and look forward to seeing you next week. Remember, it's your time to thrive. Let us inspire you. Have a great rest of the week. Stay warm.
Everyone.
Take care.